Well, hello, everyone. I'm Karen GABORIK, the host of this podcast, Good News, Intuition Works. And the message of this podcast is that intuition works, and it really does. And I'm here to help share the good news and invite you to use this very important skill every day. Because we know that there's a whole world out there and so many different sources of wisdom that we can tap into. And we get so many reminders every single day that we are not alone. And so this podcast is really a celebration of how trusting yourself first and learning to use your intuition can make a real difference in your everyday life. So if you would like to learn more about the intuition skills and practices that you hear described today, please visit Inner Access 101 and explore all the offerings from Lori Wilson, who is the founder of Inner Access 101. You can find links to her website and her social media accounts in the show notes. So today it is my pleasure to interview Kelly Woodruff. Welcome, Kelly. We're so glad to have you on the podcast today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Now, I know just a few things about you, Kelly. I know you're based in New York City and you're an artist. You've been involved in theater and the visual arts for a long time. And those talents I hear show up in your business, Bond Architecture and Design, and just in your life in general. I also know that you have a long history with Lori Wilson and Inner Access 101. You are a trainer. You teach the channeling course, the business intuition course, and you helped co-create the artist intuition course. And most recently, you and Lori taught the artist intuition course in person in Guelph, Ontario, Canada. So,
We
and
did.
then Lori tells me she's very hopeful that the two of you again will be offering that artist intuition course sometime in person in New York as well. And boy, that one I do
Right,
not want to miss this time.
right.
So,
I
yeah.
hope I hope sometime in the spring we'll be able to have that offering in New York City.
Oh, that would be so fun. So, well, maybe you can add to that and just tell us more about yourself personally, professionally, and what your
Sure.
passions are in life right now.
Sure. I have always been involved in the arts in one way or another. In fact, my very first job in high school was as a puppeteer at in a children's department at a local library. So even from
Mhm.
that point, I was involved with the arts. I moved into performing. I was a performing artist, dancer, singer, actor for a good long time, well into my adulthood. That's the reason that I came to New York from Florida, which is where I grew up.
Okay.
And then in sometime in the mid 90s, I sort of started to make a transition back into more of the visual arts, and am in a partner in architectural interior design firm called Bond Architecture and Design. As you said, we are based here in New York City, and in around 2000, I took a little bit of a swerve to the left and began doing a kind of healing energy work called reconnective
Okay.
healing,
Okay.
and have been very involved in that for a long time. I still have a practice somewhat of that as well, still see people occasionally. And that work is really based on tapping into the larger, basically energetic body that exists in and around all of us. So
Okay.
that vast body of information is really part of the same place where we go when we talk about doing intuition as well. It's part of one of our sources of wisdom. So
Yes.
I've been sort of in this expanded consciousness, I think is a way to say it, sort of field and work for a long time, really, basically since just around 2000. And then Laurie and I have been friends for almost 20 years as well. So
Mm,
it's
wow.
been a really great ride. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I've taken some of her courses and, I've seen your face pop up here and there. So it's, yeah, it's fun to connect like this and get to spend a little bit of time live with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah, it's really funny when we first went and did the Access Intuition class, the foundational um, class of Lori's work. Uh, I was really along for the ride with a friend of mine who was really excited to go and take it. I was just very like, okay, that'll be fun to do in Toronto. We'll go to Toronto for a weekend. That'll be fun and go hang out. And
Mhm.
I think one of the biggest aha moments that I had that first weekend is not just how easy it is, which it is very easy, but
Mhm.
also how, for me, um, how natural it was, and the less I strained as you will,
Mm.
to know or to figure out or to try to get something or whatever. The more I allowed it to just flow and to be in this space of receivership and knowingness, as Lori says, the easier it was. So
Yeah.
I think I was really blessed in a way because I never I didn't think of myself in those terms, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think
Sure.
I've used intuition all of my life. All of us have, whether we're aware of it or not.
Right.
I think as an artist, there's something inherently
Mm.
natural about that as well.
Yeah, well, perfect segue to dive in a little bit deeper. And of course, this podcast is all about good news and that intuition really does work. And so
Right.
can't wait to hear your good news story about your personal, experience with intuition in
I've
your life.
had so many experiences
Mm.
of having intuition benefit my life
Mm.
on a very personal and also professional level that it's hard to select one.
Mm.
So I thought what I'd do is I would start by saying one of the most interesting things that happened to me when I first took Lori's classes, I, without sort of ever hanging out a shingle or in any way, shape, or form, um, I actually began to get clients. People began to ask me
Oh.
if I'd be able to help them, do an intuitive reading for them or whatever.
Mm.
The most remarkable thing that I found was how specific and how accurate
Mm.
the information was for helping people.
Mm.
For some reason, my first three clients particularly were people who all needed to have some healing around loved ones that they had lost. And all
Got it.
three of those people received really, really significant information that helped them to deal with the passing of their loved ones. The reason that I mention this is because, again, if you have to feature, I'm a novice. I'm not really practiced at doing it. I had just
Right.
finished my training and I wasn't really looking to be that guy. And
Right.
these people, all three of these clients got very significant information
Wow.
that was really helpful for them. And so I think on one level that experience was one of the things that helped cement for me that, oh, good news, intuition is real. It does work.
Yeah.
All of those things. Those were my first my first memories. I do a lot of correspondence in my job nowadays. I am the interior design side of our business, but I also run the business side of the business. I do a lot of the business correspondence. I do a lot of presentations. And the biggest thing I think that came from my initial intuition training was just the knowingness of what to say, or even more
Mm.
importantly, the knowingness of what not to say.
Yeah. Wow. Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and that knowingness, that's been a really significant game changer for me and for us. And in my personal life, I laugh about it all the time because
Mm.
I have always been a very plain spoken,
Mhm.
sort of easily activated person, if you will, and I admit it. But with an intuition training, I think that one of the funniest things that happens a lot is I just have a voice in my head that says, "Nope, don't say that."
Mm. Mm.
Don't,
Yeah.
wait. Because I think
Sure.
one of the things that Lori teaches us is to learn to listen, learn to trust
Right.
ourselves. And
Mm.
that for me is I think if I had to, in just a couple of words, what's the biggest benefit of taking Lori's Access Intuition 101 class is learning to trust ourselves, learning to know,
Yeah.
especially these days when there's so much information out there, good, bad,
Yeah.
indifferent,
So much noise, right?
alternate facts, noise,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. I think that right now is just so, so important for everyone to be
Yeah.
able to have that inner knowingness and that inner trust. So
Yeah. Absolutely. It's so I love that you pointed out that as you become more skilled with your intuition in your life, it was not just a call to action, but also a call to pause or to stop or a call to non-action. So
yeah,
that feels it's. I think we forget that side of the equation sometimes, but it
right.
feels just as important. Yeah.
Right. Because, our emotional response very often in many situations, all of us is to like, we're kind of programmed to respond right away.
So you've talked about this inner knowing, maybe just to expand on that, or is there a particular intuition skill or practice that you just find yourself using the most often?
I probably use my business intuition skills
Oh, okay.
the most. Very much as a designer on the day to day. I know that I sit with myself and this is also part of the artist intuition too, sit with myself and sit with the idea of the client and really try to receive what is the client looking for?
Mm,
What do we want to express for them? How are we going to express that? Taking the materials that we're working with. Again, this is really what some of the stuff we teach in artist intuition,
mm,
and allowing those to sort of guide us. Um, so all of that stuff in my business, both business intuition and artist intuition, because I'm in an artistic business, um, are
mhm.
really like the day to day that I do use all the time. When we teach artist intuition, it's so great because we're teaching people to be able to work through artistic blocks or to find areas
Mm,
of inspiration. So if they're having problems creating in any form of art, to be able to move past that. And as
mm.
we're Laurie and I have a sort of, we call it sort of our secret mission, which is to sort of let go of the old artist paradigm of the sort of struggling, suffering artist, the tortured
Okay.
artist,
Oh, yeah.
who that's been the paradigm for many years, right? That's what
Sure.
everyone thinks about. It's like,
Right.
the starving artist, the drinking, drugging, whatever, to create artists. And we
Hmm.
really are, bound and determined to teach people that it's not necessary to do that stuff. Yeah, you want to do it, it's fine. But if it's not necessary to do that to create, that you
Right.
can simply take a pause and go to a specific place, whether it's your audience, whether it's the piece itself, whether it's the market, the larger market, whether it's the collective of all artists that went before you or a collective of artists in your field before. All of those are sources of wisdom
Mm,
or information that you can go to that keeps us out of any, that really I won't say it removes the struggle entirely, but it certainly makes the process a lot smoother and a
mhm.
lot more, there's a lot more flow that happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah, every little kid, if you give them a box of crayons and paper and
Hmm.
tell them to draw a picture, they will. But if you
Right.
give adults a box of crayons and a piece of paper and say, draw a
Right.
picture, they're like, oh, I
Uh,
can't draw. Right? That's
right.
the
Right.
first thing. I can't draw, you
Yeah.
know, or the
Yeah.
same, you tell a little kid, like, okay, we're going to sing a song. Okay, great. Okay, let's sing a song. And you say that to adults and they're like, oh, well, I can't sing. Right.
Yeah.
So, that's just a learning that
Yeah.
happens at some point as we get older. And I think that we're recognizing that learning can be unlearned and that, there's a lot out there that we don't tap into and that we can.
Well, and it feels like some of the good news here is that from my perspective anyway, I don't know, how you perceive this, but the culture is maybe slowly catching up with some of these ideas that, hey, as small children, we do have all this creativity, we do have this intuition,
Right.
and let's not forget it.
And
Yeah,
so now
yeah.
what we're doing is we're taking that idea that society is going with us and we're actually expanding on that to say to people, hey, you know, you have even more than you think you do. There's
Mhm.
more available there than you even think, even than you just thought that you
Right.
had. And here are some things that will help you to be able to get to that, help you to be able to access that, help you to be able to express
Mm.
that, to be creative. So it's really great fun to teach too because we invite artists of all stripes and levels, whether you're,
Nice.
a at home needle pointer or somebody who, is writing the great American novel and everything in between,
Hmm.
to come and join us, whether you're, a hobbyist, a musician or a professional playing in an orchestra somewhere, we encourage everyone to come and see what more there is. And then the business intuition is the other side. And the thing
Okay.
I love about the business intuition is that it's still taking the same sorts of skills, but
Hmm.
now we're taking those skills and we're applying them to something which in most, 90 something, whatever, I don't even know, the vast majority, consider business to be a very ethereal,
Hmm.
intuitive,
Sure.
fluid sort of
Yeah.
arena. It's
Right.
business. So
Very
it's business,
cerebral,
right? It's,
right? Very
and it's
cerebral. Yeah.
linear and it's cerebral and there's spreadsheets and whatever.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
yes, to some degree. But
Hmm.
what about what's the next great idea, right? What's the
Hmm.
next great product in my oomph world? Or what is the marketplace saying about my business? How does the marketplace want me to position my message so
Hmm.
that I can expand? What is it that is holding back my business from having, a larger, audience, or whatever those things are? How can my message be refined so that more people can hear it? So all of those sorts of things in and around business. How should I
Yeah.
structure my new company? What would be the most, productive and optimal way to staff? How should I,
Hmm.
all of those things are all parts of business, right? We're able to, again, go to these different sources, the customer, the marketplace, the product, the, whatever,
Hmm.
and ask for guidance or get additional guidance or information that allows for the business to be more viable. And then on the
Right.
practical day to day, I very much know, okay, I can bill this client this much right now. This is a good time to do that. Like,
Okay.
or what, I'm going to wait a week before I send out this invoice
Hmm.
because of, I know where we are in our, where that I have a sense of where that person is in relationship to where this project is right now. And I know that
Hmm.
it won't be as well received if I send it today as if I wait and send it next week. Now, that's a pretty pedestrian thing, right? You'd think you did the job, or you're getting ready to do
Right.
a job or whatever, send the bill, they'll pay. It's really funny. It's subtle, but it makes
Yeah.
a huge difference. It really does. It makes a big difference. And it's made a big difference in the way that we sort of flow.
Yeah. It sounds like bringing this additional set of skills to how you work with people. That's what
Right.
it sounds like. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And and I mean, we are in a very people client focused business.
Hmm.
The act of creating a home,
Yeah.
very, very personal experience for people. There's a lot of it, a lot tied up with that creation for
Right.
them. What does it represent for them? Who they are? What are people going to perceive of them as when they present this? How are they going to be in this space? How are they going to feel in the space? How do they
Hmm.
feel about themselves in the space? All of those things. That's really very, very, very people focused. So, it goes
Hmm.
so far beyond, oh, I like modern and I, I
Right.
want,
Right.
I want to do blue. Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not it. That's not what it's really
It's
about.
not just templates, huh?
No, it's not templates. It's not looking at pictures and saying this is the style. It's really about shepherding people through a process
Yeah.
and helping them to make decisions that they'll be happy with and that we can execute, and all of those things.
Yeah.
So
It feels like for you, intuition, even the business and the artistic intuition, which it sounds like you're fairly conscious about, but all of it's so integrated into your life. So when you look back on your life, what 20 plus years ago, and how you approach things maybe before you really hone some of these intuition skills, and then you compare that to now, what has been the biggest change?
Well, now picture me walking down the sidewalk and encountering people and, nodding and saying hello and how do you do and walking on and whatever. And then picture me 20 years ago running my head into a brick wall pretty much 24/7. Not really, but I mean, just
Okay.
charging forward and knocking things aside and, got to get it done,
Gotcha.
it's
Gotcha.
it was a really, really big shift for me. It was a really giant shift. I mean, I'm a very, very, very different person. Well, we all are than we were 20 years ago, whatever. But I mean,
Sure.
just the
Yeah.
way that I move through the world is a lot more, it's just a lot easier.
It almost feels like learning to open the aperture and then also learning what to do with the information, how to
Right.
process it, and
Right.
then how to respond.
Right. And
Yeah.
remember, and because you've taken some of the classes, the challenge in that is again twofold, not just the opening of the aperture, but then being able to organize the information
Mm,
as it comes through so that you're not just overwhelmed.
right.
We don't ever want anyone to just turn on the channel and just have it all. When we turn on a television, we turn it on to one station. We don't
Right.
turn on a television and have, right. We don't have 36 different channels
Hmm.
open on the TV at one time with all the audio coming at us at once and all that. We focus on one thing so that we can follow that. So it's the
Yeah.
same sort of idea, very big screen, a big aperture, and the
Hmm.
ability to change the channel to where we need to look and we want to look and to receive the information. And that's again the great thing about the structure of Laurie's classes and Interaccess 101 in general is this ability to go to a specific place and receive specific information and know the source, which is important also,
Hmm.
knowing where it came from. If we're doing
Right.
if we're doing a business reading for someone, this is a really good example. We're doing a business reading for someone and we start to get information about the way the person is working that we're reading.
Hmm.
If we don't know that the voice that's saying, "Oh, you're working too hard. You don't have to work that hard. You can just relax and let things flow." If we can't recognize that that might be the voice of the person's partner who is suffering at home because the person's working
Hmm.
so much, as opposed to the voice of the actual product or business itself who's saying you don't have to clutch so much, you can relax and let things go. Two things, that has two very different that
Right.
has two very different impacts. It might be true on both sides. It still can be a
Hmm.
truth, but
Sure.
knowing where it came from
Yeah.
has an import that is something again that we try to teach when we teach our classes. We try to teach people that so that they know and can recognize. And I think it's important. It's sourcing and tracking has been a huge thing for me. Hey,
Yeah.
where did that come from? All right, I just got that, and again, that's something that I get. Right, as a matter of fact, I had a little mini incident today. Now that I think about it, I was working with someone and I sort of got something in the middle of the meeting. I didn't say anything to them, and I thought to myself afterwards, I thought, where did that come from? Where was that? And I realized, oh, it's the person that's actually financing the job doesn't want to spend too much more money, and that's why
Oh,
that
interesting.
particular little thing popped into my mind of don't do that. That's not. And I realized, oh, I think that's probably.
So, Kelly, what would you say to somebody who's wanting to learn more about intuition and try some of these practices that you've talked about, but they're nervous or afraid and they're just not sure?
I sometimes forget this. It's interesting. I'm really glad you asked the question because I sometimes forget that people get really a little scared about, oh my God,
Right.
what happens if I get something, because there's always been a part of me that has said, we're okay here on this ground right now. And any
Mm.
information that I'm going to receive, it's not going to make me throw myself off a bridge or, I'm not going to, you know what I mean? It's not dangerous.
Hmm.
It's just,
Right. Right.
if you get something that seems concerning, then you follow it and you find out where did that come from? What
Hmm.
is that I'm getting? But that's one of the great things again about this type of training is that we learn that there's never any fear. You don't need to be fearful. You don't need to be
Hmm.
nervous or concerned. And if someone has that, I always say, go watch a couple of Laurie's videos, go watch a couple of Interaccess videos and watch her talking about it and get the sense of it. And you will very quickly feel very comfortable and
Right.
start
Yeah.
to understand the ease and the safety that's created.
Hmm.
We're not opening a door somehow that can't be closed if you wanted to, but you're not going to want to anyway once the door's
Right.
open. But, we're not
Yeah.
suddenly unleashing the hounds and, you're going to have all this information pouring over you all the time. I mean, God bless if that happens. We'll teach you quickly, very easily, how to focus in on one or two things that you want to and let the rest of it go. But I mean, it's just not a thing. It's not. So I try to find, in the best way possible for me, is just to assure people that there's never any fear as part of this equation, because I say
Hmm.
we don't need to get fearful. If there's something, we just need to be educated. Hey, where does that come
Right.
from? The other thing I think that's really interesting about this work, is far in relation to fear, is it, I know for me personally, and also what people say a lot, it relieves a lot of self-doubt. And I think one of the shifts that I see in people a lot of times who come in, that there's a certain kind of self-confidence and sort of there is like this sort of ease, a little bit, perhaps ease of moving through the world that can happen,
Mm.
with a little less concern, a little less fear for their own safety and their own, I mean, I think that knowing that there are sources available to us out there that we can tap into, it makes people feel a little bit more safe in general.
Mm.
And I think that well, again, in these times right now, I think that that's really a very, very, important and powerful thing for people to feel a little bit more in control, a little bit more secure, a little more, everybody's nervous. Everybody's nervous now, no matter where you are in the political divide or whatever. I think everybody's concerned, and I think that when you can have just a little bit more comfort with some knowingness, what's true, what's not true, that it can make people feel a little bit better. It can relieve some of that anxiety, that existential anxiety that a lot of people are suffering from.
Yeah. Thank you. That's like such an important point. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing
Yeah.
that.
I actually was just going to ask you a question, like,
Oh, yeah.
since you've been, involved with this work and been doing some of Lori's classes, what do you think your biggest sort of takeaway, but perhaps like um shift is a great way to say it. I want to say, what your own personal shift do you think, because of your ability to access this now?
For me, it feels like slowing down enough um, to allow that awareness to develop and for that to be okay, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I definitely less and less and less am powering through life, sort of as I was conditioned to do, by family and culture and, the
That's what
media
I
and
say.
all of that. And being much more comfortable in the unknowing because I feel like because I know I trust that the knowing will come and
Right.
and I don't have to manufacture that, and not be nervous sort of in those spaces where, maybe I just don't know right now, but I know that I will. And so,
Right.
yeah, a lot less action oriented and a lot more um, listening and awareness and
Re-
patience.
receiving,
Hmm.
receiving, right.
Yeah,
And patience. Yeah. Yes,
yeah,
that was the running down the street, running my head into a wall because I was just
right.
barreling forward so much, and without the same thing, same exact. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm getting more and more evidence of what life can be like when I'm not constantly trying to engineer it
Mm, mm,
myself, right? And so
mm,
that feels super powerful. Yeah.
mm.
That feels very empowering.
The
Yeah.
difference is that we no longer have to try to figure out how to get from point A to point
Right.
B, right?
Yeah.
So we can still hold the idea of our destiny.
Hmm.
Here's my picture. I love that picture. How am I going to
Right.
get there? I don't know. I don't
Right.
know. But I know
Yeah.
what the picture is. And so all I have to do is just take one step at a time and know that I'm going to know the next step. As long as I'm focused on the picture, that as long as I'm in receivership, I'm going to be guided to the next step to allow that vision to be created. And
Mhm.
that's that not being okay with not knowing. And that's the
Mhm.
not knowing that you're talking about, is in not knowing, I don't know how, but all the steps I'm going to have to do to get from here to there. But as long
Right.
as I know that that's it, and I see myself in that, and I know that's where we're going.
So if people want to learn more about you specifically, where can they find you,
The
Dale?
best and easiest thing to do for me always is just to drop me a quick email. And I
Mm.
am more than happy to share my email, which is kelly@bohndesign, BOHN design.com.
Okay.
And whatever you're interested in the conversation being, then we'll tailor that to them. Of course, if you're interested in architecture, you can go to our Bond website. If
Great.
you're interested in reconnective healing, you can go to the reconnective healing website, which is www.thereconnection.com.
Yeah, well, and it also sounds like just staying tuned in with InterAccess 101 and future offerings that you'll be involved in that it sounds like they're
Absolutely.
coming.
Yes.
So
And if they
yeah,
check the InterAccess 101 website, it'll not only give the schedule of upcoming events, which always is, but also different ways that you can contact all of the trainers and all of us. So
to the listeners, be sure to check out the InterAccess 101 website, and just there's a huge variety of courses and offerings available
there
there
is.
that Lori has. So you can find links to that, all of this in the show notes. And Kelly, I just really want to thank you for joining us today and
Thanks, Kelly.
reminding our friends out there about the importance of working with all these different types of intuition that you covered. And so this was just so much breadth and depth to this interview. So thank you for
Thank you.
that.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I loved our talk. I look forward to chatting with you again.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope I get to see you in person in New York. So,
Same.
all right. Well, I'm Karen Gaborik, and I look forward to seeing everyone next time. And remember, as we here at InterAccess 101 say, remember in all you do, trust yourself first.